and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and today we are doing a Game Week 13 wildcard video. A video which I think is not just going to be useful for the wildcarders, but also all of us, people like me, to kind of give a direction, I guess, of where we should be looking to move our teams towards. What kind of team do we want to start creating as we look towards those final game weeks before the World Cup. So guys, if you do enjoy this video, please do leave a like, please do subscribe if you're new around here and you want more FPL content in your faces. But without further ado, guys, I say we just get on with it immediately. Okay, so I believe I've spent 100.3 million on this team, so it's reasonably cheap. There may be opportunities for some upgrades somewhere. That's kind of be up to you, I guess. But let's go through from goal all the way to the forwards and then the bench. There's some good players in here. Let's start off in goal with Kepa Arrizabalaga. Now, I think that he is a position where you can maybe have a choice here. I think Guaita is also a pretty decent option in goal. I'm going to put Kepa in here as well, though, because he is at 4.4 million, which is super, super cheap. Obviously, he's playing for Chelsea, which is a good team, a good defence, and it's very rare you can get a Chelsea defender who is nailed on for this much money, and he seems to be in very good form as well. So overall, I do really like Kepa, and I feel like he can be trusted even in those slightly tougher games. And a lot of people have been asking me recently, which Chelsea player should I go for? Which Chelsea defender? Who is the most nailed on Chelsea defender? And the answer really is Kepa, because there isn't really anyone in the defensive positions who are nailed on. Their rotation is just so bad right now. So if you're looking to get in on the Chelsea defence, Kepa would be where I would go. But alternatively, if you want to play the fixtures a little bit more, Vicente Guaita of Crystal Palace is my other choice, I guess, in goal there, who's just 0.1 million more expensive. He may even be 0.2 million more expensive by the time you watch this video. Going into defence, we've got Cancelo, no doubt about that. Man City have got an excellent run of fixtures between now and the World Cup, so we do want to be capitalising on them. We do want to be going triple Man City, which we'll get to shortly. But we'll start off with Cancelo, who has obviously been in fantastic form this season. He has kind of been one of those players who sometimes scores low. You know, sometimes you get a 1 or a 2 pointer out of him, but then other game weeks you just get like these madness 10 plus points from him, and that's because of what he has in his locker, and particularly over these good games, Brighton, Leicester, who I do think are going to be struggling for goals, Fulham and Brentford. I do feel like these are good fixtures, not just from a defensive point of view. You know, City, best defence in the league, can keep clean sheets against anyone, but also there's some real opportunities for some goals in these games as well. So maybe Cancelo is going to get the odd assist, make a bombing run forward and get a goal, drive into the box. We know what he can do, and we hope that he can do it. Next up, we've got Trippier. So a little bit template, I guess, for these first two defenders with Trippier. The next fixture against Spurs is not great, and you can even bench Trippier if you want to, but obviously Newcastle have been very good. Trippier has been the most creative of all of the defenders so far this season, which is really, really impressive, particularly over recent weeks. He has been so creative, getting forward, getting into the box, putting those passes in, putting those crosses in, you know, on those set pieces as well. So everything helps, and there's always opportunity to get some points from Trippier, even if it's not going to be clean sheets. Newcastle, I do feel like, are an improving defence as well, which I think they're going to get some clean sheets, particularly in games like Aston Villa and Southampton in the upcoming game weeks. I think there's going to be some opportunities for some clean sheets, and then obviously Trippier maybe bangs in a couple of assists, maybe even a goal. You never know, could score a free kick as well, which would be pretty nice. And we're going to finish off the defence with Benjamin White. So Ben White is the final defender. I know that's probably a little bit different to what you were expecting, but 5.8% owned, bit differential, 4.5 million. I do feel like at his price bracket, and I know we've been looking a lot at the moment, which 4.5 million defender are we going to go for? We don't want to spend too much into defense anymore. Like, big at the back is kind of a thing of the past, I guess. Big in the back, that sounds a little bit wrong. But my point is that Ben White, he is looking really good right now. He's going to get those clean sheets against teams like Southampton, Nottingham Forest. We've got Wolves coming up for Arsenal as well. So there's going to be some real opportunities. And I do think Ben White, I would rather go for him than Saliba. I know a lot of people are going to go for Saliba right now, but 0.6 million cheaper is Ben White. And yes, Saliba is going to offer a little bit of threat from those set pieces, but Ben White, he is still creating a little bit because he's playing in that right back position. So I like him a lot. I definitely think he is the top 4.5 million defender to go for right now, and I do thoroughly recommend him. Going into midfield, we've got Salah. So it is Salah time again. I'm recording this video before Salah plays against West Ham, but he's my captain, so fingers crossed he's going to do very, very well. I guess you will see in the comments after the result what the actual situation was. But good fixtures coming up. Nottingham Forest, Leeds, Spurs not so great, but then Southampton after that. And honestly, in the debate of who is going to be our second premium player, if you like, It's Kane versus Salah, really. Maybe you could go for De Bruyne, but I don't think you do. I think there's better value elsewhere in Man City, and we're only allowed 3 Man City players. So, therefore, Salah is going to be our guy, I think. I think Salah's good back. Like, from what I've seen in the last couple of games against Rangers in the UCL, and last week against Man City as well. He has looked just fantastic, back on form, very sharp, playing actually as a striker now, as part of a front two. Running the lines, looking very, very good, playing more centrally, which is what is going to get him FPL points. So we know what he can do when he is in those dangerous areas, which earlier on in the season, he wasn't in the dangerous areas. He was playing too wide. So I think that's going to change now. And if it does, it's going to be points galore. We're going to get our old Salah back. We're going to get our king back. Thank God for that. We've been waiting for so long, right? Next up, we've got Phil Foden, who I think is arguably one of the most must-buys of Game Week 13, probably the must-buy of Game Week 13. If you are making transfers, then Foden is going to be the one you want to target right now. And if you're on a wild card, you know, it's very easy for you to get Foden in. So, again, good fixtures. Brighton, Leicester, Fulham, Brentford. To be fair, Fulham in particular is a game I'm really looking forward to for City. Fulham and Brentford as well. Those two games, you know, these are two defensive. These defenses have actually been weaker than the likes of Nottingham Forest. They've been weaker than the likes of Bournemouth, you know, even Leicester recently. So I actually think Fulham and Brentford are the teams to target at the moment. So when you've got this home game for Man City, we do want to make sure we're getting those attacking players. Now, Foden, it seems to be nailed on now, and no doubt about that. It's definitely a good decision by Pep because he is in some fantastic form. He's playing so well. He's really reaching that potential that we thought he would do a couple of seasons ago. He's one of the best players in the Premier League right now, you have to say. So very exciting stuff for those of you guys who own Foden or who can easily get to Foden. Definitely be thinking about it. Get him as soon as physically possible, guys. Next up, we've got Saka, who, again, is an exciting player who I think is a player to buy right now. Southampton up next, which I think is a very good fixture, followed by Nottingham Forest at home. Southampton are kind of a slightly weaker defence as well at the moment. And Saka is obviously on penalties. We've seen that. He's showing some really good form. Earlier on in the season, it seemed to be the Martinelli show in many ways. But now it's all about Saka. So Saka is doing the business big time. I'm not saying Martinelli is bad by any stretch of the imagination, but we want to get on that Arsenal attack in these upcoming fixtures. And you know Saka is going to get those points. I think he's the better pick than Gabriel Jesus right now. I'd rather go for Saka, so why not? Let's go for Saka and let's double up in the Arsenal attack with Martinelli. It's pretty crazy, right, guys? We've got a lot of Man City players. We've got a lot of Arsenal players. The great thing about wildcarding right now is that you can jump to all of these Arsenal and Man City players who obviously blanked in Game Week 12, and that's definitely what I would be doing. So yeah, again, very good fixtures. Southampton and Nottingham Forest in the next two, which I really like. Martinelli has been in fantastic form, shown himself to be just the ultimate cheap midfielder. Like, there's no beating him. No one is even coming close, are they really? So yeah, continue with that, please, Martinelli. Keep doing very well along that left-hand side. Saka on the right, who maybe isn't not such good value for money as Martinelli, but these are both top attackers for Arsenal, an Arsenal team that is in fantastic form and who will be hoping to be number one in the Premier League by the time that World Cup rolls around, and they can definitely do it looking at these fixtures. Let's move up front, guys. We've got Erling Haaland first of all. No doubt about that. Look, he's just a player that you have to have in FPL right now, and if you don't have him, you're kind of in the mud, as I've found out earlier on in the season. But we move on and we move. Brighton next, great fixture for him. I do think Brighton have shown some defensive fragilities over the last couple of game weeks. We saw, them conceding to the likes of Liverpool and Spurs, two big teams that were kind of difficult for them. So yes, they kept a clean sheet against Nottingham Forest, but I feel like I look more at Brighton and their performances under De Zerbi against Liverpool and Spurs, and I think, this Man City team that you would say is better than Liverpool, better than Spurs, well, better than Liverpool despite the result the other day, still better team, and I'm probably gonna destroy them, maybe. I guess we say that every game week about Man City. They are just that good, and Erling Haaland is just that good as well, and we'll be looking to see how many goals he can get to this season. Clue, it's a lot. Another great thing about these Man City players is that they've had this midweek rest, which is kind of rare. They haven't had to play any games in the midweek. Almost all other teams have. In fact, I believe every other team in the Premier League, especially Arsenal, even if you consider Arsenal, they played a midweek game as well because they have their Europa League game. So all in all, Man City, a team that we worry a bit about rotation and their squad depth, are actually the team with the most rest. So Haaland is going to be fresh and ready to go, let me tell you that. Next up, Callum Wilson, who I guess is another optional pick. If you can't quite afford Callum Wilson, maybe you can go for a Dominic Solanke. I think he's another option in this particular slot. Tony as well, if you like the penalty merchant himself, then Tony is going to be a good option. But Wilson is also on penalties, and Newcastle are in good form. So I would definitely consider going for Callum Wilson. I know this next game is against Spurs away, which isn't ideal. But Aston Villa and Southampton after that, I think are quite nice fixtures. And Callum Wilson is a prolific goal scorer. Whenever he plays, he seems to get goals. So we like Callum Wilson a lot. You've got those penalties as well. There's a lot of penalty takers in this team. You can see it already, guys. We've got Salah, Saka, Haaland and Wilson. And if you look at last game week, Game Week 11, for example, there was loads of penalties, and penalties kind of defined the game week. So get on those penalty takers, guys. You never know when you're going to get a penalty gifted your way. And finally, let's finish off with one more penalty taker, and that's Mitrovic. So very good to have him back. Looking forward to some good performances from him. Love the next two fixtures, Leeds and Everton. These are really, really strong fixtures for him, and I think he's going to do very, very well there. After that, Man City and Man United. I think you can maybe afford to sell Mitrovic at that point, but even then, we've seen Mitrovic already do well against the big team. So, again, we love this guy. He has got some phenomenal underlying stats. Whenever he has been fit this season, he has been performing, whether that's at club level or international level. He's a genius. He's an absolute genius. And he's proven all of the doubters wrong about his performances and his ability to score goals in the Premier League. He really has. And that's just been down to him being the focal point, the key to everything that Fulham are doing right now. Let's move on to the bench, guys. I'm going to start you with Iverson. I think I would put Iverson in here because he's 3.9 million, which is pretty cheap, obviously. If you can find a 3.8 million goalkeeper, if one of them emerges, then maybe go for him instead. Obviously, Ward is also an option if you want a rotation goalkeeper potentially there. But Ward is now at 4.1 million, which is a little bit more expensive than he was previously. So I wonder, is it worth going for Iverson? Is it worth going for Ward? It depends, I guess, what price you bought Ward at. If you bought Ward at 4 million and you have him on your bench currently, then I guess you could keep him. But if you want to save a little bit of money and just want to play your main goalkeeper every single game week, then go for a cheaper goalkeeper there, in my opinion. We've got Gahey there as well, 4.4 million defender. You can also go for maybe, I don't know, maybe Tyrone Mings or Esri Konsa, an Aston Villa defender in this slot. Though I do have to say that Aston Villa don't have quite as strong fixtures as Crystal Palace. So I would be wanting to, I think, get a Crystal Palace defender as your cover there. And then the other names on the bench are a little less familiar. So we've got Jacob Murphy. Obviously, we're used to having Andreas on the bench. But for 0.3 million cheaper, you can get Jacob Murphy, who is in great form right now, starting regularly for Newcastle, which is surprising, and doing very well as well. So I feel like, especially while Saint-Maximin is out, Murphy is kind of staked his claim to this slot. I don't even know. Maybe even when Saint-Maximin comes back, we might see Murphy play instead of Almiron, for example. The form is there, and 4.3 million is the cheapest you can really do for a midfielder right now. So it seems like a decent player to go for, even if you're just looking for 1-pointers. Again, this player is going to be on your bench. It's going to be. We've not got any more blanks coming up. You shouldn't have too many disasters, in terms of your players and what fixtures they have going forward for the rest of the season. I feel like, you're probably not going to have to depend on your bench very much over the next 4 game weeks before the World Cup. So we don't need to spend too much money, in my opinion. And finally, we've got Kinder Bueno himself. He obviously played for Wolves last night, and I thought he looked really, really good. Really, really impressive. He's a left back. He's only 3.9 million, so very, very cheap. Wolves do have some nice fixtures coming up. And I don't know, maybe he keeps his place. And if he does keep his place, maybe he could be the next big thing, because he really did look good. He got an assist, obviously. Wolves, we know, can be a fairly strong defence at times. I like this one. I like Bueno a lot. So I genuinely feel like he may be the cheap defender to go for right now. If you're in a situation where you feel like you're not going to play your bench players very often, why not take a risk on Bueno? He's very cheap, so there's no real downside to doing it. So there we go, guys. That is the team. Let's slap a captain's armband on Erling Haaland. I know you guys are probably thinking maybe Salah as well, and it is a bit of a toss-up. But for me personally, I do prefer Erling Haaland as the captain this week. I'm going to be captaining Haaland myself, even though I have both. Well, I will have both Haaland and Salah come the Game Week 13 deadline. I slightly prefer Haaland, but vice captain on Salah there as well. I just feel like Nottingham Forest aren't quite as weak as they were previously. I feel like they are, gradually tightening up a little bit, gelling a little bit better and looking a little bit better defensively. They're by no means a strong defence. I'm not saying that at all. But yeah, I feel like I would go for Haaland against Brighton as a priority. Home game as well, which always helps. And yeah, on some other potential changes, maybe you could also put in Trent Alexander-Arnold or Robertson in this team. I think there is options to do that. I would maybe consider removing Trippier for a Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold, or maybe removing Ben White. Another option would be to, downgrade Wilson to maybe a Odsonne-Edouard, maybe. He's really cheap, 5.3 million, or Solanke, who is kind of a cheap forward as well. Depending on your budget, maybe that is allowing you to upgrade the likes of Trippier or Ben White to a Liverpool defender. I think that's the only other thing that I would change that I haven't mentioned so far this video. But aside from that, this would be pretty much the team that I would be going for if I was to wildcard in Game Week 13. And this is also, incidentally, a team I am looking to build towards over the coming game weeks. This is what I want my team to look like over the next game week or so. So hopefully I'm going to be able to do that with some transfers. But if not, hopefully I can get as close as I can. But wildcarders, this is your team. This looks good as a template, certainly. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. Obviously, Game Week 12 hasn't even finished yet, so I will be trying to make some Game Week 13 content, but it's difficult too before all the games are finished, but maybe we'll do a couple of videos tomorrow in as short a period of time as physically possible, I guess. But yeah, hopefully you're enjoying the content anyway. Appreciate you guys, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.